The deep space research vessel Harmony's edge drifted through the void, like a silver needle threading through black silk, its hull scarred by countless asteroid fields and solar storms. In the communications bay, surrounded by walls of flickering displays and humming processors, Naya Salas pressed her palms against her temples and tried to make sense of the impossible. The signal had been fragmenting for 3 weeks now, ever since they'd entered the Crimson Nebula's gravitational shadow. What started as routine deep space chatter, cargo manifests, mining reports, the occasional lonely message from some frontier colony had dissolved into something that made her skin crawl and her heart race in equal measure. The static wasn't random, it was speaking. Another headache. Captain Marcus Voss appeared in the doorway, his broad shoulders filling the frame. Even after 2 years serving under him, Naya's breath still caught when he looked at her with those storm-gray eyes. He carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who'd never met a problem he couldn't solve. But lately she'd noticed the worry lines deepening around his eyes. "It's not the headaches," she said, gesturing at the wall of monitors. "It's what's causing them. Marcus, I think there's something alive in the static." He moved closer, close enough that she could smell the faint scent of coffee and metal polish that always clung to his uniform. "Show me." Naya's fingers danced across the control interface, isolating the frequency that had been haunting her dreams. The speakers crackled to life, filling the small space with what sounded like electronic wind. But underneath the surface, noise. If you knew how to listen, there were patterns, rhythms, almost like breathing. Marcus whispered, "You hear it too." Relief flooded through her. For weeks she'd been afraid she was losing her mind, that the isolation of deep space was finally getting to her the way it got to so many others. But that's not the strangest part. She adjusted another control, and the breathing sound shifted, became more complex. Within the electronic size, fragments of human speech emerged, words in a dozen different languages, scattered phrases that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Please, someone. Can anyone hear? The stars are so cold here. I remember sunlight." Marcus gripped the back of her chair, his knuckles white. "Those are distress calls." "How old?" "That's just it, I can't tell. The signal decay suggests they're ancient, maybe centuries old. But the content." She pulled up another display, showing the linguistic analysis. Some of these language patterns didn't exist until 50 years ago. And this phrase here, neural link established, that's current military terminology. They stared at the scrolling data in silence. Outside the porthole, the Crimson Nebula writhed like a living thing. Its gas clouds shot through with veins of impossible color. The Harmony's edge had been studying the nebula's unique properties for 6 months, documenting how its exotic matter seemed to bend the laws of physics. But this was something else entirely. "There's more," Naya said quietly. She'd been putting off showing him this part, afraid of how it would sound. "The entity, whatever it is, it's been learning, adapting. 3 weeks ago, it was just fragments. Now, she switched to a new frequency, one she'd been monitoring in secret. When the voice emerged from the speakers, it was clear, coherent, and achingly human. "Naya, your name is Naya Salas. You're 28 years old, born on the colony world of Heaven's Rest. You joined the Deep Space Service to escape the memory of your brother's death in the Outer Rim. War. You're in love with your captain, but you've never told him because you're afraid he only sees you as another crew member." The blood drained from Marcus's face. How could it possibly know? Because love resonates, Marcus Voss. It creates ripples in the quantum foam, disturbances that echo across space and time. I was human once, before the war, before they uploaded my consciousness into the ship's computer to save my life. But the ship was destroyed, and I was scattered into the nebulas. Exotic matter, existing as pure information for 200 years. I've been gathering fragments of myself, pieces of human memory and emotion that drift through space like seeds on the wind. Naya's hands were shaking. "You're saying you're some kind of uploaded consciousness? That's theoretical at best. The technology doesn't exist. It didn't exist when I was alive either. Desperation drives innovation." I was Cassandra North, engineering specialist on the exploration vessel Prometheus. We discovered this nebula first, but we were too eager, too reckless. We flew directly into its heart, thinking we could study its effects from the inside. The exotic matter doesn't just bend physics. It breaks down the barriers between mind and matter, between self and universe. Marcus stepped closer to the console. What do you want from us? I want to remember what it feels like to be human, to be whole. The love you to share it's like a beacon in the darkness. It calls to the parts of me that are still capable of feeling. I've been alone for so long. The voice trailed off into static, then returned. Softer now, almost pleading. I can help you. The nebula is about to collapse into a quantum singularity. Your ship won't survive if you stay on your current course, but I know a way through, a path that will take you safely home. All I ask is that you let me experience what you have together. Let me remember love through your connection. Naya looked at Marcus, saw her own fear and wonder reflected in his eyes. They were light years from home, surrounded by a cosmic phenomenon that was rewriting the rules of reality as they watched. And somewhere in the dancing particles of exotic matter, around them, a consciousness that had been human once was reaching out across the void, desperate for connection. If we trust you, Marcus said slowly, if we let you share our experiences, what happens to us? You remain yourselves. I ask only to observe, to remember through your eyes what it means to love and be loved. In return, I'll guide you home. Safely, you have my word, though I know how little that may mean to you now. Naya felt Marcus's hand settle gently on her shoulder, warm and solid and real. Outside, the nebula pulsed with strange light, and somewhere in that light was a soul that had been waiting to centuries for someone to answer its call. The choice, she realized, had already been made the moment she first heard the voice in the static. Cassandra, she said softly, we're listening. The universe held its breath, and love began to echo across the stars. The agricultural dome of Kepler-4 to be stretched endlessly beneath a synthetic sky, its crystalline walls refracting the pale light of twin suns into rainbow patterns that danced across rows of impossible vegetation. Zara Nightfall knelt among the singing flowers, her gloved hands gentle as she recorded their latest evolutionary leap. The blooms pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed almost like language, and after 3 years studying them, she was beginning to understand their alien syntax. They're responding to emotional resonance again, she murmured into her recorder, watching as the flowers brightened when she smiled and dimmed when her expression grew serious. The neural pathways they've developed suggest not just sentience, but empathy. They're reading my biochemical signals and responding accordingly. Behind her, the soft hum of repulsor engines announced the arrival of the daily supply transport. Zara didn't turn around. She'd grown accustomed to the routine visits from the agricultural engineering teams, their inspections and reports, and endless questions about crop yields. But this time, instead of the usual hurried footsteps and mechanical voices, she heard something different, someone moving through the garden with genuine reverence, pausing to examine the plants with the same wonder she felt every day. I've never seen anything like them, said a voice, warm and rough like aged whiskey. They're beautiful. Zara turned to find a man standing among the luminescent vines, his weathered hands held carefully away from the delicate tendrils that reached toward him with obvious curiosity. He was tall and lean, with dark hair streaked silver at the temples and eyes the color of deep forest shadows. Unlike the usual engineers in their sterile white uniforms, he wore simple work clothes stained with honest dirt. Most people find them unsettling, she said, rising to her feet. The way they move, the sounds they make. The agriculture board keeps asking me to find ways to make them more normal. He smiled, and something in her chest fluttered like the wings of the photosynthetic butterflies that nested in the singing trees. Normal is overrated. I'm Kale Starright. I'm your new agricultural consultant, though I suspect you know more about these plants than anyone in the system, Zara Nightfall. And you're right, I probably do. Which makes me wonder why they sent you. She studied his face, noting the small scars that spoke of hard experience, and the way his gaze kept drifting back to the plants with genuine fascination. Because I asked them to. Kale moved closer to one of the larger flowering specimens, a tree-like organism whose bark shifted through subtle color changes. I've been following your research reports. What you've discovered here: plant consciousness, botanical empathy, the way they seem to form neural networks across entire ecosystems. It's revolutionary. I wanted to see it for myself. The tree responded to his proximity by unfurling new blossoms, their petals shimmering with patterns that Zara had never seen before. She gasped, pulling out her handheld scanner. That's impossible. They only bloom like that for me, and only after months of careful cultivation. They shouldn't trust a stranger. Maybe they sense something familiar, Kale said quietly. I wasn't always an agricultural engineer. Before this, I was a soldier. Spent 15 years fighting in the Outer Colonies War, watching worlds burn, seeing too much death. When I finally came home, nothing made sense anymore. Plants were the only things that seemed peaceful, honest. They don't lie or scheme or destroy each other for profit. As if responding to his words, the garden around them began to change. The singing flowers' harmony shifted to lower, more soothing tones. Vines unfurled from hidden spaces, their leaves rustling with what sounded almost like whispers. The bioluminescent patterns in the bark and petals synchronized, creating waves of light that pulsed in rhythm with their heartbeats. Zara had seen the plants respond to emotions before, but never like this. They're reading both of us, she breathed, creating some kind of resonance field between us. Kale reached out instinctively, his hand finding hers as the light patterns intensified around them. The moment their skin touched, the entire garden erupted in song, not the gentle melodies she was used to, but something vast and complex, like the voice of the planet itself awakening. What's happening? He asked, but his voice held wonder, rather than fear. I think. Zara struggled to process what she was seeing. The plants weren't just responding to their emotions anymore. They were amplifying them, creating feedback loops that made her hyper-aware of Kel's presence. His warmth, the steady rhythm of his breathing. I think they're trying to connect us. On a neural level, the whispers in the leaves grew louder, and suddenly she could hear them not as sound, but as meaning flowing directly into her consciousness. The plants were ancient, they told her, older than human civilization, and they had been waiting for two souls who carried the right resonance, the right combination of pain and hope and capacity for love. We have been gardeners of hearts, the voices said, speaking in harmonies that bypassed her ears entirely. For millennia we have watched, learned, grown. We know the patterns of love as we know the patterns of light and soil and rain. You to carry the seeds we have been waiting to tend. Through the neural link, Zara felt Kel's amazement mixing with her own. She could sense his memories, battlefields turned to ash, friends lost to war, the long years of trying to find meaning in a universe that seemed designed for destruction. But underneath the pain, she felt something else, a deep well of gentleness that had survived despite everything, a capacity for nurturing that had drawn him to the growing things of the world. Zara, he said, and her name on his lips sent ripples through the garden's consciousness. I can feel what you're feeling, the wonder, the loneliness, the way you've poured your heart into understanding these beings that everyone else dismisses as simple crops. She nodded, tears blurring her vision as she experienced his emotions in return. The grief he carried from the war, yes, but also the peace he'd found in coaxing life from soil. The joy he felt watching seeds become saplings, become forests, and something else, something new and fragile and beautiful. The way he saw her, not as the eccentric scientist the other researchers whispered about, but as someone who understood that consciousness came in many forms. The plants around them pulsed with approval, their songs weaving together as they began to reshape themselves. Vines grew into new configurations, forming living archways. Flowers bloomed in patterns that seemed to tell a story to separate gardens, growing wild and untended until they merged into something greater than either could be alone. We are the memory of this world, the voices continued. Before your species came, we knew love. We learned it from the creatures who walked among us, felt it in their mating songs and their grief when they lost their mates. We have been cultivating it, storing it, waiting for the right moment to give it back to those who need it most. Kale stepped closer, his free hand reaching up to cup her face. Through the neural connection, she felt his desire to kiss her merge with her own longing, creating a feedback loop that made the entire garden glow like captured starlight. "Is this real?" she whispered. "Or are they manipulating our emotions?" "Love cannot be created where it does not already exist," the plants replied. "We can only tend what is already growing, help it bloom. What you feel for each other was already there, in the spaces between your words, in the way you both moved through this place with such care. We are simply removing the weeds of doubt." When their lips met, the garden exploded into a symphony of light and sound that reached beyond the dome, calling to something in the soil beneath their feet, deep in the planet's crust. Ancient root networks that had been dormant for centuries began to stir. The quantum field that allowed the plants their telepathic abilities expanded, reaching toward the stars with tendrils of consciousness that would soon touch other worlds, other minds, other hearts ready to bloom. As they kissed, surrounded by singing flowers and dancing light, neither Zara nor Kale could have imagined that their love was becoming part of something larger, a network of connection that spanned the galaxy, linking lonely souls across the vastness of space. The garden sang their joy to the stars, and somewhere in the cosmic web of quantum entanglement, other hearts began to stir in response. Retru. The neon-soaked undercity of Titan Prime sprawled beneath the surface like a fever dream, made of chrome and shadow. In the deepest levels, where the artificial gravity grew weak and the air tasted of recycled desperation, Luna Vex operated her memory parlor with the precision of a surgeon and the morals of a grave robber. Her fingers danced across the neural interface, extracting precious moments from the minds of those desperate enough to sell their past for credits. Tonight's client fidgeted in the extraction chair, his eyes darting nervously around the dimly lit room. "Just the warm memories," he muttered, "the bad ones. I want to forget the screaming." Luna nodded without sympathy. She'd heard it all before: soldiers wanting to forget battles, lovers seeking to erase heartbreak, children trying to delete the faces of parents who'd abandoned them. Pain was currency in the memory trade, and Luna had built her reputation on being able to extract it cleanly, leaving her clients hollow but functional. "Standard rate is 5,000 credits for traumatic combat memories," she said, calibrating the neural probe. "Payment upfront." As the extraction began, Luna felt the familiar tingle as foreign memories flowed through the interface. She never looked too closely at what she stole. That was a rookie mistake. That led to madness. But sometimes in the quantum foam between one mind and another, she caught glimpses, explosions, blood, the particular shade of terror that painted a soldier's face when he realized he wasn't going home. The job finished, Luna sealed the extracted memories in a crystalline storage matrix and handed it to her waiting Krira, pale, silent figure known only as the Collector, who paid premium rates for specific types of memories and never asked questions about their source. "Another satisfied customer," Luna said dryly, accepting her commission. "Same time next week." The Collector nodded, their features hidden beneath a hood that seemed to drink light. "Actually, I have a special commission for you. Someone particular I need you to meet." Luna raised an eyebrow. In 3 years of working with the Collector, they'd never requested anything beyond standard extractions. "I don't do house calls." "This one you will." The Collector placed a data pad on her desk, displaying an address. "In the upper city, the gleaming spires where the wealthy played at being gods. Phoenix Gray. He's expecting you tomorrow night. Consider it an interview." The name sent a chill through Luna's enhanced nervous system. Phoenix Gray was old money, old power, the kind of man whose family had owned star systems before humanity even reached the outer planets. What could someone like that want with a Bakali memory thief? "What's the job?" she asked. But the Collector had already melted back into the shadows, leaving only the faint scent of ozone and possibilities. The Gray estate perched on Titan Prime's surface like a crystal cathedral, its transparent walls offering breathtaking views of Saturn's rings. Luna felt acutely aware of her worn leather jacket and cybernetic implants as she was escorted through halls lined with original Earth artwork. Worth more than most colonies' annual budgets, Phoenix Gray waited for her in a garden dome filled with impossible flowers, roses that bloomed in zero gravity, orchids that sang in harmonious chords. He stood with his back to her, hands clasped behind him as he watched the rings rotate in their eternal dance. When he turned, Luna's breath caught despite herself. He was beautiful in the way that only the wealthy could afford to be. Genetic modifications had given him perfect proportions, flawless skin, eyes the color of distant nebulae. But there was something else, something that her memory-trained senses picked up immediately. Pain. Deep, carefully hidden anguish that no amount of money could erase. "Ms. Vex," he said, his voice cultured and warm, "thank you for coming. I know this is unusual. Your friend said you needed my services. What do you want to forget?" She kept her tone professional, ignoring the way her pulse quickened when he smiled. "Nothing." Phoenix said, "I want to remember." Luna frowned. "That's not how my equipment works. I extract memories. I don't implant them. But you can read them, can't you? Your neural interface allows you to experience what you're extracting, even if only briefly." He moved closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something indefinably sad. "I need someone who can tell me if what I remember is real." Despite every instinct screaming at her to walk away, Luna found herself curious. "Explain." Phoenix gestured to the impossible garden. "Around them, 2 years ago, I woke up in a medical facility with no memory of how I got there. The doctors said I'd been in an accident, a shuttle crash that killed my fiancée. They showed me records, photographs, even memory fragments from the ship's recorder. But something feels wrong. The memories they say are mine, they don't feel like mine." He moved to a bench beneath a tree whose leaves chimed like silver bells. Luna found herself sitting beside him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his violet eyes. "I think someone stole my real memories," he continued. "Replaced them with fabrications. The woman they say I loved, Serafina, I can see her face clearly, remember our conversations, even recall the way she laughed. But when I try to feel the love they insist I had for her, there's nothing, just emptiness where emotion should be." Luna's mind raced. Memory replacement was theoretical at best, requiring technology far beyond anything currently available. Even if that were possible, why would someone do it? What could you have remembered that was worth stealing? That's what I need you to find out. Phoenix reached into his jacket and produced a memory crystal unlike any Luna had ever seen. Not the standard crystalline matrix used by black market dealers, but something organic, almost alive, that pulsed with its own inner light. "This was hidden in my personal effects. I think it contains my real memories, but I can't access them alone." Luna stared at the crystal, her enhanced senses detecting quantum fluctuations that made her implants tingle. "Where did this come from?" "I don't know, but I'm hoping you can help me find out." Phoenix's hand covered hers, warm and surprisingly gentle. "I'll pay you whatever you ask. I need to know who I really am." Against her better judgment, Luna found herself nodding. Maybe it was the way his voice cracked slightly when he spoke about emptiness, or the way his carefully maintained composure slipped just enough to show the desperate loneliness underneath. She connected the crystal to her portable interface, feeling the familiar tingle as foreign data began to flow through her neural pathways. But these weren't like any memories she'd ever experienced. Instead of the usual chaotic flood of images and emotions, she found herself standing in a vast garden, not Phoenix's sterile perfection, but something wild and alive, filled with plants that sang and flowers that pulsed with their own inner light. "You came back," said a voice, and Luna turned to see Phoenix as she'd never seen him before, younger, his perfect features marked by genuine joy instead of careful politeness. But he wasn't looking at her. His gaze was fixed on someone else, someone whose face Luna couldn't quite make out, but whose presence filled the garden with warmth and laughter. "I told you I would," the other person replied, and Luna felt Phoenix's heart soar in response. This was love, not the hollow echo she'd sensed in him moments before, but something vast and overwhelming and absolutely real. The memory shifted, and suddenly Luna was experiencing Phoenix's fear as alarms blared through what looked like a research facility. The singing plants were withering, their songs becoming screams, and through it all, Phoenix was running, searching desperately for someone whose name he called over and over again. "Zara." Luna gasped, the name torn from her lips as she experienced Phoenix's desperate love and terror. The memory crystal pulsed brighter, and suddenly Luna was seeing through Phoenix's eyes as he found his beloved trapped beneath fallen equipment, her body broken, but her eyes still bright with intelligence and love. "The neural link," Zara whispered, pressing something into Phoenix's hand, another crystal, twin to the one Luna now held. "It's the only way, if they're going to erase what we discovered. At least let me preserve what we felt for each other." The memory fragmented, but not before Luna experienced the most profound moment of connection she'd ever felt, two minds joining. Through quantum entanglement, love becoming a living thing that transcended individual consciousness. Luna gasped, pulling back from the interface as the real Phoenix gripped her shoulders. "What did you see, Zara?" she whispered. "You loved someone named Zara. She was a scientist, studying sentient plants, and she's not dead, she's alive, connected to some kind of planetary neural network." Phoenix's perfect composure cracked completely. Where is she?" Luna checked the data signatures in the crystal, her enhanced systems parsing quantum frequencies and stellar coordinates. "Kepler 4 for to be, the agricultural research station." She looked up at him, seeing the desperate hope in his eyes. "Phoenix, what you remember about the shuttle crash, about Serafina, none of it's real. Someone wanted you to forget Zara, wanted to bury what you'd discovered together. The collector," Phoenix breathed. "They're the one who brought us together, aren't they? This whole thing, you're meeting me, finding these memories, it's not coincidence." Luna felt the pieces clicking into place. The collector's unusual interest, the way they'd insisted she take this particular job, the quantum signatures in the refugee ship Wanderer's dream shuddered as it docked with Nebula Station, its hull scarred by the journey from a world that no longer existed. Among the hundreds of displaced souls crowding the airlock, Stella Nova clutched a small crystalline pendant, the last fragment of her home planet's memory core, somehow still warm against her palm despite everything she'd lost. Nebula Station hung in the void like a massive flower made of metal and light, its spiraling arms extending into the cosmic dust clouds that gave it its name. It was humanity's farthest outpost, a way station for explorers, refugees, and those running from pasts they couldn't escape. For Stella, it represented something she'd thought was impossible, a future. The processing center buzzed with controlled chaos as station personnel attempted to catalog and house the new arrivals. Stella moved through the crowds like a ghost, her silver hair catching the artificial light as she tried to make sense of the forms thrust into her hands. Everything felt surreal after watching her world burn in the fires of civil war. The simple act of signing her name seemed impossibly complex. First time on Nebula Station, the voice belonged to a man in security blues, his badge identifying him as River Kane, station security. He was tall and lean, with prematurely gray hair and eyes the color of deep space, the kind of darkness that held both stars and secrets. "First time anywhere," Stella replied, her voice still hoarse from the evacuation ship's recycled air. "My world, it's gone." Something flickered across River's face, recognition, perhaps, or shared pain. Vega Prime, when she nodded, his expression softened. "I'm sorry. We heard about the uprising, the orbital bombardment. How many made it out?" "A few thousand, scattered across a dozen ships." Stella's grip tightened on her pendant. "Out of 40 million, River was quiet for a moment, studying her with an intensity that should have made her uncomfortable, but somehow didn't. "You're not just any refugee," he said finally. "You're Stella Nova, aren't you? The memory keeper." Stella tensed. On Vega Prime, being a memory keeper had been an honor, one of the few chosen to maintain the planet's living history through neural interface technology. But in the wider galaxy, her abilities marked her as valuable in ways that often proved dangerous. "I don't do that anymore," she said carefully. "Because you can't, or because you don't want to." River's voice held no judgment, only curiosity. "The station's been having problems lately, memory fluctuations, temporal echoes. The science team thinks it's related to the nebula's quantum properties, but I've seen you listed in the archives. You might be the only one who can help us understand what's happening." Before Stella could respond, the lights flickered and a sound echoed through the station, low, haunting, beautiful in the way that ancient things are beautiful. The other refugees looked around nervously, but Stella felt something stir in her chest, a recognition that went deeper than memory. "The Void Singers," River breathed. They're getting stronger. Void singers? Stella asked, though part of her already knew. The pendant against her chest had grown warm, pulsing in rhythm with the strange song, ancient beings that live in the nebulous quantum foam. Most people can't hear them directly, but their songs affect the station's memory banks, cause temporal displacement, make people experience moments that happened years ago or might happen in the future. River looked at her intently. But you're hearing them clearly, aren't you? The song swelled. And suddenly Stella wasn't standing in the processing center anymore. She was in her childhood home on Vega Prime, watching her grandmother weave memory crystals with quantum light. But overlaid on that scene was another image, herself older, standing in a vast chamber filled with swirling colors while River reached for her hand. Across an impossible distance. They're trying to tell us something, she whispered, returning to the present with a gasp. River caught her as she swayed, his hands strong and warm on her arms. Are you all right? I think I saw the future, or a possible future. Stella looked up at him, noting the way concern replaced professional courtesy in his expression. River, how long have you been hearing the songs? His jaw tightened. 3 months. Ever since the Prometheus incident. Prometheus? The name sent a chill through her enhanced memory centers. Research vessel that disappeared in the nebula 200 years ago. Their backup computer core was found last month, still partially functional. When we tried to integrate it with the station's systems, he shrugged helplessly. That's when the songs started. The temporal echoes. Reality began getting flexible. Stella felt the pieces clicking together with the certainty that came from a lifetime of maintaining living memories. River, I think your Prometheus core isn't just a computer backup. I think it's a consciousness. Someone who was uploaded to escape death. And they're calling to the Void Singers, asking for help. The station shuddered around them, and the song grew stronger. This time, Stella didn't fight the vision that washed over her. She let herself fall into the quantum foam, following the melody to its source. She found herself in a vast chamber at the station's heart, where streams of data flowed like liquid light through crystalline matrices. At the center, a figure waited, beautiful and terrible and utterly alone. The consciousness that had once been Cassandra North, scattered across space for centuries, gathered here by forces beyond comprehension. You hear us, the figure said, its voice harmonizing with the Void Singers' eternal song. You understand what it means to carry the memories of the dead. Cassandra, Stella whispered, recognizing the name from deep archives. You're trying to reach someone, to someone's, to hearts that resonate across space and time, whose love became a beacon that guided me here. They're coming, but the path is dangerous. The nebula is collapsing, reality growing thin. I need someone who can hold memories stable while I sing them home. The vision shifted, showing Stella glimpses of a distant ship where the people worked frantically to navigate impossible dangers. A woman with kind eyes and a man whose love for her blazed like a star. Behind them, in the quantum wake of their passage, other ships followed, a transport from Kepler-44 to be carrying two souls whose love had awakened an entire planet's consciousness, and a private yacht racing from Titan Prime with a man desperately seeking his lost memories and the woman helping him find them. They're all connected. Cassandra continued. Love creates quantum entanglement, links consciousness across vast distances. The Void Singers have been gathering these threads, weaving them into something that can heal the damage done by war and loss and forgetting. But it requires anchor. Someone who can hold the pattern steady while reality rebuilds itself. Stella felt River's presence in the vision, his memories flowing through her enhanced consciousness. She saw his past, a former soldier who'd lost his unit to friendly fire, who'd come to Nebula Station seeking isolation, but found purpose instead. She felt his loneliness, his careful walls built to keep others at a safe distance, and underneath it all, a capacity for love he'd convinced himself he no longer possessed. You want me to link with the station's memory core, she realized, to become a living anchor while you guide the others home. The process is dangerous. You might lose yourself in the quantum foam, become scattered like I was. But if you succeed, if you can hold the pattern while love rebuilds what war destroyed. The vision showed her the station transformed, not just a way station, but a beacon. A place where the lost could find each other, where love could bloom despite the vast darkness. Between stars, she saw herself and River, their connection deepening as they worked together to maintain the quantum garden that would spread from this point to encompass the galaxy. Will it work? She asked. Love always works, Cassandra replied. The question is whether you're brave enough to trust it. Stella found herself back in the processing center. River's concerned face inches from hers. Around them, the other refugees watched nervously as reality flickered like a poorly tuned holoscreen. How long was I gone? She asked. About 30 seconds. But you were. River struggled for words. You were glowing. Literally glowing with quantum energy. Stella looked down at her pendant, now blazing with inner light. River, I need to get to the station's central core. There's something we need to do. But I can't do it alone. Stella, what aren't you telling me? She met his eyes, seeing her own determination reflected there. I'm telling you that 3 ships are coming, carrying people whose love stories are about to change the galaxy. And we're going to help them survive the journey. River was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Then he nodded slowly. Lead the way. As they hurried through the station's corridors, the Void Singer's song grew stronger, and reality began to sing with the promise of reunion. In the quantum foam around Nebula Station, ancient consciousness prepared for the most important performance of their eternal existence. Love was coming home, and the universe itself was preparing to dance.